Good evening. Welcome to the third installment of Searls After Dark. I've been doing this pretty much every Tuesday night now for 3 weeks. And my goal here, other than to build a thing, if my goal was just to build a thing, I'd do this on my own time. Well, I am doing this on my own time, but I would be doing it by myself just as quickly as possible instead of talking so much. Communication is expensive. But what I'm also trying to accomplish is the simulation, the pair programmer experience of you and I sitting together working on problems. And we have different situations that we experience as programmers. There's different, it's not just us and our code. It's always what's the environment we're in. Well, last week I luxuriated over explaining every little thing about Rails. And in the past, when I've done that with another developer, especially somebody who's less experienced or whatever, I tend to go off on all these side tangents and stuff. And then, Thursday rolls around and I'm realizing I have nothing to show for the demo on Friday. And now that day becomes a little bit more of a you know what? Shut up. Let's just push and write some code and hack some stuff up. We'll try to hack some code up and cut corners responsibly. But let's pick up the tempo a little bit here. So, without further ado, let's just dive in. So I've got my terminal here. I'm going to open up. Oops, wrong directory. I do not trust this. I guess I do trust this, but no, that's not what I want. I want chat.jpn. This directory was already open, turned out. And great start. We're going to run bin dev. Okay, so we got our server running. Let's see if we can get back to where we ended up. Yo, Schmangela, I remember that. So we can write a message. Of course, there's no styling yet. We have Tailwind installed and whatnot, but we haven't futzed with any style. We may not get to that at all today. But that's okay. Let's see. Okay. Test. All right, cool. So obviously stuff getting rid of the database, it survives starting and stopping the server. Okay, close everything and let's think about what we want to do next. So first of all, these messages are just us talking to the computer and there's no response back. So we probably want to start by writing one. Nothing to be afraid of here. This is just soda water. So let's plug in this code to our relatively naive spike. So we have a show route or a show form. It's looping over each of the messages. If we that's on the chat's controller. And if we look at the chat here, we're finding the chat and then we're pulling them back. So the form, though, because it's building a message, we decided to put that on a nested decided to put that on a nested resource under the messages controller. There are good and bad ramifications for this. For example, if we want to write anything to the Flash, I kind of mentioned alert, what the hell is that? It turns out that when you're doing a redirect, you can actually append stuff to the Flash and whatever the keyword argument that you name is, like error, that'll go into the Flash equivalent of error on the path being redirected to. So that's pretty slick. In fact, it solves some of the problem of where I'd have a nested resource in the same kind of controller just to make sure that the Flash stuff lined up, or just to make sure that I'd be rendering. It's all solvable. It's really just 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Okay, so we are redirecting back. Now, what that means though, right? So we create the message and then we redirect back, and that's the only thing that's really editing our chat. The only thing that creates messages is us. But we know that when we create a message, we should be triggering and requesting a response from OpenAI. Now, in our spike here, we have a very simple little HTTP dingus, and it actually hits the wrong route. It hits a route that has since been superseded. Well, I guess it hits whatever route we want. That's an interesting point. But the path that we tested this against has since been superseded because in addition to just typical prompt completion, it's also got a chat API, ChatGPT API as well. Okay, but so we got this kind of bit, but clearly if the path's not even encoded in there, this is a very flexible unit of code. We've got this kind of, pretty It's fine, but like this is like a lot of detail about our applications, like how stuff gets created that's like sitting inside of our controller. And if I were to like put the two together in this context, now I've got the peanut butter and I've got the jelly, and I've also got the instructions for how to make the peanut butter and jelly sandwich all inside of a controller method. What's the problem with that, you might ask? Well, it turns out that because controller methods or controllers are owned by the framework, and you can basically anything that subclasses something that the framework provides me, I assume is owned by the framework. Moreover, not only does the framework specify it and add a whole bunch of extra methods to it, the framework is really the only thing that can instantiate a controller reliably. If you just try to say messages controller.new, you're going to have a bad time. When that's the case, it really means that like you're not talking about a class with methods that you can just normally, put under test or introspect or execute in arbitrary contexts. The controller is kind of useless outside of a Rails application, except for like integration tests, which themselves are kind of arm's length indirect. You're not just like invoking the method, you're simulating HTTP request response lifecycle. That is like not the most fertile environment for object-oriented code or just even organizing your code. And so whenever I'm doing anything at all interesting, I try to jump out as fast as possible. So let's like stop doing what we're doing and instead pull this out. We're going to extract it. So I'm going to comment this out and I'm going to imagine something, the code that I wish I had. So this is going to say, what's a verb phrase that I could use for persisting a message and asking for a reply. When I ask something, the message that I'm sending is implied, as well as the listening. So ask for help, asks for a reply is good enough for me. Could do this as a job, but we want to at least initially just do a normal single HTTP request response lifecycle. Do this one thing at a time. This is not soda water. This is actually a beverage. I apparently hate healthy sleep and circadian rhythms. So one of my favorite things to do is leave the leftover coffee and then make a White Russian at the end of the day and then add extra coffee to it. In fact, this one not only has today's leftover coffee in it, it's got this Black Kite coffee liqueur that my friend Josh Cook mailed to me. And Black Kite Coffee, they are in Toledo, Ohio, and their liqueur has a cold brew in it. And so this is add it to the list of bad ideas Justin's had on the internet. And that would be the list. All right, we're going to do an app lib. We're going to put this there. We're going to say new folder, conversation, chat. Well, chat is taken. That constant is used for the model. Calling it chats would be a little confusing unless we decide like a plural thing is the namespace for the features around the chat. That would be fine. It's at least terse. Converse is weird. Conversation is long. Chats is good enough. I don't like settling for Markdown. I don't like settling for mediocre names. Sometimes I'll pick a really bad name on purpose, just to force myself to reconsider that before I hit commit, because maybe I'll think of something better in a little bit. But I'm going to try to be mindful. Okay, so module chats class asks for reply and end. And with a method, a single public method called ask. And here we will... Is this all there is? Sort of right now it is. Do we just want to say params? Well, I'll explain what I think in just a second. So we're going to say chats, ask for reply, new. Look at that. It's actually trying to fill the... I guess when when GitHub Copilot, this is not all the same technology. When GitHub Copilot gets to define your method declaration, it also makes sense that it would correctly get the method invocation correct, but I'm still not 100% sure that's true. So it could say, hey, for this chat ID and this message, The params object is a special funky object. It, similar to controllers, is not a hash. It's its own thing. If you want to access the stuff on it, you got to call require and or permit to get the juicy key value pairs, that sustenance of data out of it, which means that like passing it around your application, sure, certainly the plain old Ruby objects that exist outside of Rails, to be dealing with a params object would make it less testable and less portable. So I don't like the idea of passing a params object around. It's also not at all semantic. It's basically just saying like, hey, here's this gooey blob of data. Just take it and then do stuff with it. So rather, I would like to pluck the stuff I care about. And it doesn't have to like be converted to a hash, but it needs to be hash-like such that the subject asks for a reply class can just interact with it as if it were a hash. That way I could test it with a hash. Will we write any tests today? I don't know. Do I write tests at night? I don't know. So we're going to create a new ask for reply. We're going to call the ask method. As a result, I think that passing the chat ID or the chat object seems fine. Because our controllers often will scope the permission of whether somebody can access something at the controller level, because it's the thing that knows about current user, I tend to find the kind of main thing up top in the controller. This way, the thing under test can take an arbitrary object. Doesn't have to be persisted even. It could just be an in-memory chat. And if there's any sort of confusion about if there's a security risk, say, of like sending the wrong user sending a message to somebody else's chat. The more I talk about this, the more I think I just have to add a user model just to kind of get over this, the meta explanation. But if there's a risk of us posting the wrong chat, that risk is only amplified if we bury that chat.find call deeper into the call stack. Instead, like if it's sitting in the controller here, we'll see that and be like, oh wait, that should be something like current user.chats.find or something. And calling chat.find in a controller will actually trigger certain linters. There's a funly named linter from our friends at Betterment, former testable client. Betterlint is a Rubocop lint package that includes unscoped find. Yeah. So when you do this, it's like, yo dog, that might be dangerous, and then it blows up. So that's a cool rule that we can and maybe should add to this once we have a user model. In fact, fun fact, that one rule is the whole reason why I was led by the spirit to do this feature for standard Ruby, which this README probably needs a table of contents at this point. This extend config feature. So the whole reason I made that was so that I could use Betterlint. In fact, here I do. Whoops. Markdown. All right, so the best time to fix something that you see incorrect is the minute that you see it, because you got all the mental context in the world to fix it. So we could add what I wanted to say here. The proper markdown would be Betterlint. And then with a right parentheses. And then commit changes. And then just commit directly to main, because what could possibly go wrong? Always make sure something worked and didn't create new problems. Oh, here we go. Yep, cool. And that link worked. Always be checking. Can't be too careful. You can be too careful. All right. The other thing that ask for reply would take is the parameters generally for the message, because text won't be the only thing forever. So let's go ahead and just say, oh, and in fact, that's what this is doing. This is sending parameters that will be a hash, so hashy. So it'll be like a text, yada, yada, yada. So that's good enough for me. I'll just call it params on the other side, probably. Ironically, now that means ChatGPT did create a method signature and then invoke it incorrectly. So is that true? Sure did. Wild and crazy kids. Okay. Granted, the params API is confusing. So we're going to call this attrs. That way, we're not confusing it with params. These are attributes now. And we're going to say create adders. We also kind of intentionally punted on error handling. We might want to unwind that at this point or soon after, but let's see if we're working first. Referencing params chat ID multiple times bothers me. So I'm going to just set it to an instance variable, even though the instance variable isn't referenced elsewhere. So therefore I will set it to a local variable. If I've got something set to an instance variable, my logical conclusion is going to be like that instance variable is being used by a view or some kind of template. And if that's not true, then I shouldn't do that. All right, so let's take a look at what this. Now, this was a classic refactor. The behavior should not have changed. Boom. Oh, shoot. You're passing an instance of active record base to find. An instance? Dot messages. Oh, right, because I got chat find in there twice. Doit. So I just said, pass the real chat. Don't pass the chat ID. But because I don't have strong typing and because I'm not using Sorbet yet, maybe I should. It'd be a fun project to play with that. All right. P's work. Good. So that was, now it's a classic refactor. And our test, such as it was just the web browser. This is like an inappropriate amount of caffeine for after dark. Okay, so that works. Now, instead of like using bang, so we'll reopen ask reply. Using bang here means it'll raise an error if there's a validation error. That's not a great idea. So instead, what I like to do is have one-off result structs, or now data defines, I suppose. Define success. Might be the only thing on here right now. So I could just say result.new success. It always feels weird, I realize, using a symbol that ends in a question mark. This is going to return true or false, so that should be safe. All right, I go back. I go to the messages controller. I will get a result back now. How is this over 80? Just barely over 80. I go back and forth. When I'm in terminal Vim, and I have been for a decade, I am pretty strict about this. What did Aaron call it once? He said like the neckbeard bar of 80 characters. I'm pretty strict about the 80 character rule. When I'm in VS Code, I get lazy because I know I'm going to have more space even when I zoom in. These are the kinds of decisions that they don't matter, but they take up an outsized amount of my brain. Cool. Well, anyway, so it sees if result success. Wonderful. Else, what are we going to do, right? Because the messages controller doesn't have any views. So we could be like, also redirect to this, but this time with the error. Whoopsie daisy. Okay. Yeah. I've been told I said a lot. If anyone's got any fun tips and tricks for how to not say so much when you're on a camera. I don't say it normally. I don't think. I probably do. I'm just way more cognizant of it when people tell me I do because of video. If you got any fun tips and tricks, remember, email me at playstupid.games. The coolest and most straightforward domain name that I totally don't regret buying, and I'm trying to extract some kind of value from so that I don't feel like sunk cost fallacy that I wasted $12, probably more, 14, 15. How much could a domain possibly cost, Michael? All right, so that still works. So let's force an error here so that we can see what the validation looks like. Validate thing, def thing, oopsie. Def thing and errors.add. I'm a chat, not a, wow. Boy, when it personifies like that, I'm just like, you're alive. And then I'm like, you're a statistical model. Okay, so that seems to have worked. Well, that's no good. Is it validates, really? Nope. It's validate. Validate thing, errors add base. Oh, this is on the chat. Remember, I'm not saving anything on the chat. There's only one chat. This is on the, if I want to add a dummy validation to fail, it's got to be on the message. Doit. All right. You're not actually, now this is wrong. I'm a message, not a thing. All right, so this will not persist. And because we don't have anything in our view to show flashed content, we can look at application layout, and that's probably the best place for it. Layout application, of course. And that's the stuff in the head, and then there's stuff in the body. And maybe I'll just say like, div. Maybe this is the first place we write a little bit of tailwind. So I always get hung up about the best way to do this. You could loop over every potential key in Flash, which will lead you to accidentally have like error and notice and warning and failure all together. Or you could do just the ones you care about, like error and failure, or error and notice maybe. The names do not matter. It's just a hash-like object. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to loop over. I'm just going to keep it simple. I'm not going to overthink this. So I'm going to say if flash error present, if there's anything in that flash, and end. Then I'm going to say I'm also not going to style. My brain's just not in that mode. I'm just going to do the bare minimum to render it onto the page and stop overthinking this. Did I put it in error? I did. Well, that should have fired. Maybe it's failing here. That's a theory. Maybe it's failing. No, it's not. So it's not saving, and yet it says success. Result new, success. Create would be returning false. Ugh. I was going to say sorry, but I'm not sorry. This is just, you can't apologize. It's like, this is the work. This is what we're here for. Like that it predicted I would say raise hell. Okay. Oh, shit. So when you call create on a thing, it doesn't actually return true false. All right. So what we're going to do instead, how many years? How many years I've been doing Rails? I don't know. More than most people, and I still forget the API. Having a REPL is really nice. I should have been in the REPL playing with that. Or writing a test. But I'm not going to chide us for not writing a test because this is after dark. Okay. So instead, we will do just that. Save it. Now we go back to the controller. And this should raise hell now. Yep. Okay. So now go back here. Whoa. Hello. I don't know what happened. I need an adult. Okay. Get back in there. Okay. Now is Turbo replacing not the whole page? We can test. So Turbo by default will replace the entire body. If our thing's in the body... come on, preview. Body div. Okay, so didn't see it. Maybe this rumor that I heard is false. Redirect to with error. I check the layout. Flash error. If flash is present, render the error. Oh, shit. Nope. Never mind. Sorry for the swear, everybody. That was premature. Let's see if there's anything to flash at all. There is not. Let's look at the documentation for redirect to or the implementation, Rails API. Status is an option. Flash, boom shakalaka. Maybe this changed. This strikes me as the kind of thing because they got Rails core got way more serious about proper keyword arguments instead of these loosey-goosey, just put whatever the hell you want there arguments. So that this would be flash would be the keyword argument makes a lot of sense to me. So I think this will work. If I would know why command left square bracket would just pull this out at two-toned. Okay. Safari knows what's happening. Oh. It's been a long day for this computer. Whoopsie daisy? All right. I'm not rendering a lot. I'm not going to do a lot of the sort of Tailwind stuff yet, but I'm going to say text red. I will preview, though, how nifty is that extension that lets me just pick this shit out and be like, yo, boom. And then I hit enter instead of tab like a noob. And then it doesn't work. How cool. Oh, but then how cool am I again that now it's a red box? Pretty cool. That's right. All right, so you hover over it, though, and then look at that. You got the fancy RGB, 3 values, no commas, and then because the no comma way, you can divide by an opacity, which is another variable, which lets Tailwind do its thing. So that's the color. That's the color red 500. And this time when we do this, it's going to be gravy. Sure. Very proud. Very proud of things I've done today. But then I'm going to delete most of the lines of code that we wrote today in that one fell swoop. So now we've created a message. Good. Now we want to send a second, create a second message in effect, this time representing the chat, the OpenAI API's prompt reply. So what we'll do is we'll say, we can always say like, hey, if message.save else end, stick this up as the base case to say, yo, this is actually not successful. Of course, having like errors on the message would be nice. So like attaching the message to the result would be appropriate if we like actually cared about what the message was. But for the moment, oh, fine, I'll do it. Twist my arm. I'm in a very strong Yagni mood, as in you ain't gonna need it. I'm all over the place. And take advantage of the shorthand, save myself 6 whole keystrokes. And now I am so lazy. I'm so lazy. Which is a virtue, according to Larry Wall. If you're not familiar. Larry Wall, 3 virtues of a programmer. Show me potato salad. Yeah, typing is hard. Great programmer. Larry Wall, the creator of Perl. Laziness, impatience, and hubris. Yeah, you know what? In hindsight, I guess impatience is poorly worded. The anger you feel when the computer is being lazy. I don't know. I tend to blame myself more than the computer. The computer did nothing wrong. It's like Thanos in that way. Okay. Let's at play stupid games. All right, we're gonna hit this thing up. So we're gonna talk to OpenAI HTTP. No client, just post. And then I said I was lazy. The reason I said I was lazy is I was going to go. See, look at that. Look at that degree of lazy. Completions. Prompt. Yeah. Model. Nope. Model. Give it to me. Nope. I don't know if that'll work. I mean, maybe it'll work. Probably would work. I don't know. Not max tokens. There is another thing that we found. There's another argument that we found. OpenAI API. We're at 30 minutes. Look at that. We're just cruising through. Look, we've done so much stuff. Documentation. So many clicks. Text completion. No, API reference. Hello, completions. Okay. I guess maybe max tokens is what I wanted. I'm not going to customize the temperature and top P and all that stuff yet until I've got everything working. Okay, so we're going to say max tokens is like... Japanese language is pretty terse from a character's perspective. Fun fact, when Twitter was like 140 characters, like that's enough to write a very small novel worth of Japanese because, you know, Chinese kanji characters pack a punch in terms of meaning. Especially if you want them to, as well as even the phonetic characters in Japanese, often called, you may have heard hiragana or katakana. Those don't actually represent single sounds like our alphabet does. They represent syllables. So it's called a syllabary instead of an alphabet. Now in post, I'm going to do a the more you know. Not going to do that. As soon as something sounds like work, I'm like, this ain't work time. This is me time. Why did it do that? Okay. This will give me a response. Now, I kind of want to just say, I'm going to be a confident coder. Well, hold on. What do I return from this HTTP thing? Is it another response object? Sure ain't. Just raises. Oof. All right. Well, we're going to create a lot of result objects. You may really love this pattern, or you may really hate it. Tell me about it at let's@playstupid.games or in the YouTube comments. So the result is going to have... This is just HTTP. I know it's HTTP. I'm just going to call it response. Am I returning the response? I am. No, I'm returning the JSON. Oof. Okay. Okay. We're going to say... I don't know what the errors look like is the thing. So what I want here, result, new, JSON, and true, success. True. I ultimately want the error to be captured by this, but I don't know what the errors look like. So if I just don't give it anything, does it error? Just say, hey, you need a model on this? That would be wonderful. So I can just see real quickly. If I could just get the order of parentheses right. Hello, 404. Wonderful. So it has a thing called error and then message, type, param, and code. So that means that the JSON is still parsable. So I can say, give me that JSON. Success false. And then I can say, if it's not parsable, if we're that screwed, I guess I'll just say, I'll do something of the same shape. I'll say error pointing to another hash of message. Nope, not the colon, because it's all strings. Seems legit. Okay, so now if I call this, do I get something useful? Reload. I'm calling the same method I just changed. So here you see I get a result now. It's success false and JSON. Sorry to all the Jasons out there who don't like that their name has been co-opted by a informally defined serialization notation. Apparently that's strange. But this works. Oh, right. The slash was just sort of like an accident of... Cool. I don't know if I've got what it takes to blow this up further. So I'm going to trust that and no, I'm not. Never trust anything. That's my advice. Don't trust, but verify. That's me. So that did work. I'm paying like pennies to do these things for you. Uh-oh. Oh, that's ensure. I want rescue. See? And this is why you always verify. Ensure will run the thing even if it's not rescued. I just wanted rescue. I didn't want anything. I was getting fancy. I'm just trying to impress you. Cool. Message invalid JSON. Good enough for me. Okay, so moving right along. Let's go back to ask for reply, completions, message text, max tokens 80. Seems legitimate. Response. Here we're going to do sort of like, I guess, another nested. I heard that nested ifs are always a good idea. Quote, send tweet. If response success. Response success. Result new. We're going to do the same thing again, except this time we're going to say reply equal chat.messages.build. Right now we only have texts. And that JSON is going to have a text field. And choices. Yep. So we could say json.dig. Whenever I have more than one thing using the subscript operator, I feel better using dig because it's less likely I'm going to get a nil blow up as such. Okay. And then if reply.save, so much nesting, then suddenly it's not message, it's messages. The honest thing to do, if it's called ask for reply, it should have the message and the reply as separate variables in the result. Even if I'm not going to use them, it's just polite. Message, no follow-up, reply, no follow-up, success true. If that's unsuccessful, doink, 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 doink. Yep, false. Okay. It will make using the actual error more difficult, however, because then I won't know if it's on the message or the reply. Do I care? Do I want to make that somebody else's job? I don't. I don't want to make it somebody else's job. But do I? Because the validation... So let's say I want to actually render the errors correctly, since I don't necessarily want to come back to this thing anytime soon. If I was writing this for real, I wouldn't. So get out of the chats control. I don't have to be in there. I don't need to be in HTTP. If I was pulling out from this result errors to print, yeah, I'll tell you what. We're going to say result dot singular or plural is what I'm stuck on, because a validation can have multiple errors. And this is how we end up with such complicated applications. Not full messages, we're just going to say result. I'm going to call it error message. One thing at a time. I don't even have any validations on the freaking message yet. Why am I wasting time on this? Because I love to let the perfect be the end, the enemy of the good. Okay. So if message save is incorrect, then I can say success false. Error message is here it would be message dot errors dot full messages dot join. Yep. Sure, that's good enough. Okay. And then if it saves and the response is successful, I never finished this if else. I was like, what the hell? Aha, yeah. We are now at 40 minutes. I feel like I'm again. I feel as if I am on a submarine and I'm saying dive, dive, dive. 40, 50. That's how deep you're going down the Searls After Dark hole. I adjusted the gain of the microphone, so I really hope this isn't peaking. If the response is a failure, I will be returning a result. Still has the message on it. The reply will be nil, so I don't need to set that. Success will be false, and the error message will be not response.error message, but rather, yeah, response error response dig. Now that I've got us all on the dig dug train. Dig dug. Now there's a game. Dig error message. I'm going to have to like simulate all these now. This is the, we call if else complexity in a method like this, we call it cyclomatic complexity. And in my mind, cyclomatic complexity is less important than having multiple kinds of complexity in a method. This method has two obvious kinds of complexity. One is it encodes the proper way to invoke this API with specialized information. And two, it handles all of these edge cases. So if I were to change this at all from a design perspective, I would probably start by extracting this bit. But yeah, the cyclomatic complexity of this is not small. It's big enough that I just had to hide the sidebar to read all this. Should be right. And an error message becomes, instead of message.errors, it becomes reply.errors, a full message or join, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. Okay. Then N doesn't work because I forgot to parentheses. Cool. So let's reload the page, see what the hell happens. I've forgotten now at this point. Nope. Unacceptable. OpenAI, HTTP. Do I need to... Oh, right. In the interest of being consistent so that I never make a mistake like this, way back in my Java years in like 2006, I just decided categorically I was not going to capitalize all of the letters in an acronym. Rather, I was going to basically Pascal case any classes that would be acronyms, which is how you end up at OpenAI and HTTP. But I forgot that. I forgot my own rule because let's take another look at our sponsor. Because Black Kite coffee liqueur is apparently as alcoholic as it is caffeine-y. Okay, fail. Missing keyword. Oh, these aren't optional? I just thought these were all optional. I thought that was the whole deal. Well, all right, now we're... No, I want them to be optional. Optional. Make it optional. I don't want to have to define all this. No, nil. Let me make it nil. What the hell? So the best thing about struct is like you only set the stuff that actually is set. Nil attributes, Ruby 3.2 data. Come on. There's got to be a data, maybe Ruby 3.2 API data define will tell us. This is not boding well. So there's optional settings. Okay, I don't have time or attention because 45 minutes. I don't have the time or attention to figure out why this is failing. So instead, I'm going to say so upset about this. I don't like this at all. I'll at least get the order consistent. I get that like if you care a lot about types, you don't want to leave something on the type undefined, but I feel like if it's undefined, you should just let it be nil. I didn't make a mistake. I just don't have a value for it. Because if the response wasn't successful, I'm going to reply. It's just how it works. Success false. And yep, same shit. Reply nil. I'll do it. I don't have to be happy about it. Well, I didn't write that. How are you? It's slow. That's a good sign. How are you guys enjoying Windows 10? So right now, it's trying to do a prompt completion. Remember that the very first episode, when we got this all to work, we started our prompt with some language saying, like, respond to this in Japanese. I can recreate that very easily now. I can say something like, Nihongo de henji shite kudasai. Doink. Genki desu. Anata wa dou desu ka? Totally standard Japanese saying. I'm healthy. I'm well. How are you? All right. So next week on Justin takes too long to write code that doesn't really do very much and frustrates the viewer because it's full of very obvious errors. And yet, is talking through lots of useful concepts that a lot of people don't get to encounter because if I've been blessed with anything, it's been tremendous teammates over the years and colleagues. Test Double, quick advertisement for Test Double, 48 minutes, 30 seconds. We're chock-a-block with brilliant people who have taught me so much over the years. Mentors, colleagues, people with more experience, people with less experience, that just share so many concepts with me from other thoughtful people who care about trying to do this job well. So we look at us. Like, it's easy to make fun of how little we got done, but, how do you say there's no I in team? What's it going to say? チームに私はいないという意味では、チームには一人じゃないと言います。So, the team is not just one person. So look at that. You're on my team. They're on my team. I'm really grateful for both of you. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I look forward to checking out the next version of Searls After Dark after I create that, which will probably be next Tuesday. I'm trying to get consistent. Encourage me by writing an email to lets@playstupid.games, and you'll get my attention because I don't know that anyone actually wrote one last week, and now I'm worried as I say that someone did and that I don't have the email forward set up correctly. Bye!